Hello everybody, my name is Miss Thompson and I will be showing you today how to make what I like to call a bubble bowl. By the end of today, you will be creating something that looks a little like this. You'll be able to eat out of it, you'll be able to put it in the dishwasher. It's a really fun project that I'd like to share with you today. I'm going to start off by saying a few things that you need at your table. At every table, we're going to need a cup of water, a little sponge, a few rubber scrapers, maybe one for each student. We'll see if we have enough. A metal, I call it a cutting tool. It could also be a butter knife, as well as a piece of plastic on top of a bowl. And last but not least, we need a piece of paper and a pen for the very end to write our names on our projects. Now, for this project, we're going to start off by having the adult helpers roll us some coils. And I'm going to show the adult helpers very quickly how to roll the size of coils that we're going to need for this project. I have a hunk of clay here. When I put it in my hand, it's about the size of my palm, and we're first going to give it a squish. Now, if I was teaching my middle schoolers, I'd tell them, you got to squish it to a T-U-R-D shape, something a little bit like this. From here, we're going to start at the tips of our fingers, and we're going to roll to the bottom of our palms. Tips of fingers to the bottom of our palms, and we want this coil to be an inch in diameter, an inch. And so when I roll, I'm opening my fingertips as well to touch more of the clay, and let's check out this coil. I'm thinking it's about an inch. I can also compare it to the thickness of my thumb. We don't want anything smaller than your thumb. So our goal is about an inch in diameter. And then from here, the adult helper can take their cutting tool and you're going to make inch by inch cubes for your students. We are going to be using these little bits of clay to roll into spheres. So the adult helper, as you cut, you could be handing your students these little pieces of clay so they can start rolling it. Something a little like this. And my adult helpers, you're going to have to make a lot of these depending on how many students you have at your table. So as they're rolling their spheres, you should be rolling coils and cutting them into pieces. And then from here, I need the students to really pay attention to the screen now. When you are given these little pieces of clay, you're going to put them in the palm of your hand, and you are going to roll them in between your hand. We're not pressing super hard, students. We're pressing medium firm, until we get a little sphere like this. And students, to make the bubbles on our bubble bowl, we're going to need to make many spheres. So I want you to always have your hands moving, picking up a little piece of clay, rolling it in your hand, and setting it off to the side. A second way to roll a sphere is to put the little piece of clay on the table, and then your hand just above it, and make little circle motions. If anybody needs to do hand over hand, this would be a really great technique. Just moving the student's hand over it so that they can also make their spheres just like this. Okay, you're going to keep on making these. So pause the video now as you make your spheres and resume the video once you have, I would say, I don't know, let's say like 20-25 spheres. That's about how many we'll need for this project. So give it a pause and start making some spheres. Okay, now we're back. You should have a pile of spheres in front of you. Hopefully you do. Our next step is to start placing our balls of clay into our bowl form. And to do this, students, you're going to take a little ball, give it a slight pat on the table just to squish it just a little bit. We're not flattening it, we're just making it a little less round, and you're going to place it right in the center of your bowl. Take your sphere, give it a little pat. You're not squishing it, but you're just touching it just a little bit to make it a little bit more flat for our bowl. When you are placing your spheres in the bottom of your bowl, I first want you to make a flower. Watch what I'm doing here. As I add my spheres around the center ball, I'm making this flower shape. Press, place it in. Once you have a flower at the bottom of your bowl, you are going to keep adding clay balls up the edge. Press down, place it in, give it a little press, and you are going to continue adding these little spheres of clay until they touch the rim of the project. Every time you place down a sphere, give it a press it on the table, place it in the bowl, give it another little press. You are going to do this up the wall of the bowl. And even students, do you see how my spheres go above the rim a little bit? I'd like yours to do that as well. So building your walls up until they get just a little bit above the rim of the bowl. Adult helpers, definitely, if you see your student needs some help placing the spheres where they're supposed to go, you can guide them to tell them where to place their spheres. I would like you to build up your walls. Pause the video now and start building up your walls. Okay, students, let's continue on. Now, we are very close to finishing this bowl. We need to, before we smooth it out, we need to patch some holes, because sometimes where the spheres don't touch, there's going to be a little hole in your project. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab a sphere that you made flat, you're going to tear it into little pieces, and then wherever you see a little hole, you're going to put a piece of clay there. If you can see the blue color of the bowl through your project, place a little piece of clay there. We're going to patch the holes, patch them up, and then we're going to come back to see the final step. So take a moment, grab little spheres of clay, pull them apart, and place a little piece of clay where you can see the bowl. Pause now and do that. Okay, we've come to the last few steps of this project. What we're going to do next is we're going to use a rubber scraper. We're going to use our cup of water, a little sponge, and if you still have that metal clay tool around, you can grab that as well. For this next step, we're going to have to take our bumpy bowl and smooth it out. We're going to smooth it out. And so to do this, what I like to do is take my rubber scraper in my hand, and I like to hold it like this, where it's long way up and down, long way up and down. And I'm going to take my rubber scraper, and I'm going to begin smoothing out this bowl. I have one hand holding the scraper. My other hand right here is holding onto that bowl. One's holding onto the bowl, one's going to do the scraping, and with the rubber scraper, I'm just going to press. This can be a little tricky for some students depending on their dexterity. What I'm doing is holding it long ways up and down in my hand, and I'm making a this back and forth type of motion. Scrape, and you are going to scrape and scrape all the way around your bowl until it's mostly smooth. I have one last trick to get it perfectly smooth. So if it's mostly smooth, that's fine. Now, we're also going to scrape the edges. And sometimes these spheres around the edges like to fall down. So if they're going to fall down on you, give them a quick squeeze and press onto the bowl so they don't wiggle on you. And we're just going to continue scraping that bowl. If you would like to pause now and watch, or excuse me, if you'd like to pause now and do this, you can, or if you would like to see the last finishing step, you could continue watching. So if you want your students to pause now and scrape it, you can. If you would like to watch the last few steps as well, keep on watching. Okay, so our bowl is now mostly smooth. It's not perfect. To get it perfect, we're going to dip our sponge into the cup of water and we're going to squeeze most of the water back out. We don't want a dripping sponge, but a sponge that is wet. And we're just going to pet the bowl, use the sponge and gently touch the bowl. We're not pressing incredibly hard right now. We're just rubbing some water on it to make it smooth. Just like that. Okay. From here, I highly encourage the adult helper to do these last few steps, or at least have the adult helper do this next step. We are going to take our clay cutter tool and we are just going to cut parallel to the table. We're going to cut this excess off. My knife is just resting on the rim of this, and I'm just using the rim to guide my tool. You're just going to go around and cut off the excess. If you feel like you have a student that can do this, feel free to have them do it. Most students will need an adult helper for right there. Okay, I only got 3 minutes left on this recording, so I'm going to talk quickly. If you have any bumps right here where there wasn't a clay ball, you can quick put a little piece of clay there just to smooth it out if you want to. Okay, the last step, and I promise you this is the last step. We're going to take our sponge one more time. The student, by the way, can do this part. And we're just going to smooth out the rim here. Right, think about if you're eating cereal, students. Do you want a super jagged, bumpy, rough rim to slurp your milk? Or do you want a nice, smooth rim? I know, I don't want any sharp points when I'm drinking my cereal milk. Last few. Okay. I'm going to smooth mine out off camera just because I only got a minute left on my recording. What I would do is just take a moment and just smooth out this little bit over here and finish smoothing. Now, before you leave today and before you walk away from this room, we really need to make sure we have the students' names on a piece of paper. So if you want to write their first name and last initial, you could. If you want to write just their initials, you can. And just to help me out, you can place that right in the center of the bowl and leave it there. And you can, for cleanup, you can leave this bowl out for about an hour outside of a plastic bag. But after an hour, I would like it to go into a plastic bag so it doesn't dry out on us. So yes, I hope that this project went well for you. Hopefully, students were able to roll their spheres and get this done. I do appreciate you taking the time and following my project today, and I hope to see you or hope to do another project with you in the future. Have a great day. Bye-bye.